Hey, howdy, hey, folks. It is Mrs. Johnson with the Agro Wisdom Channel. Again, we are reading Cattle Country of Peter French by Giles French, who's not related, for FFA Lullabies. I'm a little late this week recording videos because it was Memorial Day and I had lots of life things. But we're almost to the end here. We got like 15 more pages left, so maybe we'll crank it out today. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe my computer's dying. We'll figure it out. Anyway, we left off on page 144. We just found out a little bit more about French and Ella, which was his wife, like I thought it was. Anyway, this chapter on page 144 in my book is called French Glen versus Alva Springer. Had the dispute been settled in conformity with English common law, which gives the owner of a shore land the additional ownership of land to the middle or center thread of the stream or lake, then French Glen's claim would surely have been upheld. Or, if Peter French and the Glens had known about riparian or shore rights earlier, there likely would have never been a court trial. But knowledge about riparian rights came late to both French and the Glens. Settlers filtered into the area between the French Glen land and Molehair Lake, with no opposition from the big company. As long as the lake filled with the original meander line every year, there was no cause for controversy. Settlers would have found no land between French Glen and the lake water, but dry years, the breaching of the sand reef that permitted the Molehair to drain into the Harney, and French's own irrigation projects in the Blitzen Valley all combined to lower the Molehair. This resulted in thousands of acres of exposed and unsurveyed land between the deeded property of the French Glen and the official water line of the lake. In the early 80s, French expressed no authority over lands beyond the meander line, and it must be assumed that he felt kindly towards the men who were living there. Some of them even worked on his ranch when he needed help digging his irrigation ditches. French later testified that he expected to sell them water from his ditches along the Blitzen. Then these friendly relations between French and the settlers suddenly ceased. One day in 1894, French returned from a meeting of the French Glen Livestock Company and immediately sat down at his desk to write letters to all of the settlers beyond the meander line. There, in the lonely white house beneath the blowing poplars, he informed them that the land on which they lived belonged to the company. The letter to the settler, Alva Springer, typical of them all, read, P. Range, August 24, 94. Mr. Alva Springer, Narrows. Dear Sir, as riparian owners, under the rulings of the Land Department, the decision of as riparian owners and under the rulings of the Land Department, and that the decision of the Supreme Court, we are the legal owners of the unsurveyed lands bordering on and lying north of our lands in Township 26 South, Range 31 East, of which the unsurveyed lands occupied by you are a portion. We respectfully ask that you make some other arrangements as to further occupancy of said lands and for the use or removal of the crop of hay growing thereon. Very respectfully yours, signed, Peter French. There were dozens of such letters sent out by French as general manager of the French Glen Livestock Company in compliance with the decision of the stockholders at their recent meeting. When the settlers paid no attention to them, French started suits in the federal court in Portland. These suits were transferred to the circuit courts at Burns. Testimony shows that French asked the settlers to choose one case which would decide the entire controversy and make it cheaper for them. Though they did not comply, the French Glen Though they did not comply, the French Glen versus Springer case became the test case. For nearly 3 years, from the time the letters were sent to the opening of the trial, May 24, 1897, relations between Peter French and the settlers steadily deteriorated until there was a bitter enmity between them, especially on part of the settlers. They were in danger of losing their only bit of security, of being driven from their pitiful little homes. They held meetings, listened to impassioned speakers, hired lawyers, and joined in on what was to them a holy war to save their homes. They were united in a common hatred of Peter French. French, no talker, spread no propaganda. The transcript of evidence of the French Glen versus Springer case shows M. D. Clifton as judge, Lionel R. Webster and John Cummings as attorneys for Springer, and Charles W. Parrish and Thornton Williams as attorneys for French Glen. It is a famous case in Oregon. The plaintiff's attorneys presented the documents showing ownership of the fractional lots lying immediately south of the meander line in Section 26 South, Range 31 East of the Willamette Meridian. They had been purchased from the state as swampland by W. Allen and C. E. Preston in 1889 and 1890, and sold to Peter French in 1890 for $675. Proof of the location of the meander line was given. After opening statements, Peter French was put on the stand and remained there for the better part of 3 days. French testified to the formation of the company, to his presidency of it, and to the fact that he was general manager of it. He showed familiarity with the country where he had lived for 25 years. He was certain there was more water in the Molehair Lake before the sand reef was breached, and also before he started his irrigation project, which took water from the Blitzen to irrigate the bottom land in that valley. All these physical facts seemed indisputable. The defendant's attorneys based their case on testimony showing that there was no actual lake for a distance of several miles north of the meander land. If there was no lake, they argued, the owner of the abutted lands could not claim ownership of the intervening lands. There was little testimony regarding riparian law, though the plaintiff's lawyers did state that it made no difference whether the lake had receded from natural causes or from some act of man. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. French testified that Springer had built on a knoll, had cut hay, and had deprived him of use of the land which he considered to be worth 50 cents per acre to French Glen. He also testified that he had demanded possession of the land numerous times. Springer claimed that French had encouraged him to settle. The case closed after 7 days of heated and conflicting testimony. Such differing evidence is not strange in cases at law, and the function of juries is to sort out the true from the false by the attitude of the witnesses and their reputations for veracity. Judge Clifford did that which is common to judges. He presented statements from both sides as a charge to the jury. On his own, he summed up the evidence. The principal question to you, the principal question for you to decide, gentlemen of the jury, is a question of fact, and that fact is whether or not these lands upon which the defendant has settled and is settled at the present time are lands included in the adjoining contract of land described by the plaintiff in this case, and to which the plaintiff claims title. There was. Told you I had to sneeze. And to which the plaintiff claims title, and which they claimed to belong to this land by virtue of these extending lines, or accreditations, as they call it, to which extend into this lake, which is called Mulhare. In other words, did the receding waters of Mulhare Lake, by riparian right, extend the boundaries of the plaintiff's lands, or open a new region for settlers? Common law would have brought in a verdict for French Glen. The jury in the circuit court at Burns decided in favor of the defendant, Alva Springer. General sentiment was against the company. Businessmen wanted the settlers to stay, and the many poor men on homesteads or claims throughout Harney County's 10,132 square miles wanted the small men to win. Possibly the settlers won the case because there were more of them. Dun, dun, dun. That chapter is done. Come join me on the next video. I think we're going to finish this book today. I think I said that last time, but we're going to get somewhere today. So it's going to be great. Like, subscribe, do all the things. What else? Get some sleep, eat a snack, turn the lights down, read something, learn something, all the things. Take care of yourself, please. Has my little FFA babies. Please, please, please. You mean the world to me. Okay, bye.